and welcome to the launch event of FLO Startup Cell. I'm Dr. Aarti Gupta, the National Head of the FLO Startup Cell, and it gives me immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our National President, Mrs. Ujjwala Singhania, GB members, chapter members, and our esteemed guest speakers for today, Mr. Kunal Bahel and Mr. Mohandas Pai. We are quite excited to have amongst us two stalwarts of the startup ecosystem in India and globally, and are looking forward to hearing their journey from being founders to funders. Before we begin, I would like to briefly introduce them. Mr. Pai is currently the chairman of Aaron Capital, chairman of Manipal Global Education, member of the boards of Havells India and the Institute of Public Enterprises, member of the Board of Governors of the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, chairman of the Regulatory and Financial Technological Committee of the Societies and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, and investment committee member of 314 Capital, and many more positions. He was awarded the Padma Shri Award by the President of India in 2015 and the Karnataka Rajya Jyotsava Award in 2008, amongst many more. Welcome, Mr. Pai. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We also have with us Mr. Kunal Bahel, who's the co-founder and CEO of Snapdeal.com, India's largest value-focused e-commerce marketplace. Kunal is an influential voice on issues pertaining to Indian startups and entrepreneurship. He is the chair of the CII e-commerce committee and a member of the executive council at NASSCOM. In addition to his full-time role as the CEO and co-founder of Snapdeal, Kunal has a deep connect with many other Indian startups and is a mentor and active investor in many of them. He has invested in dozens of startups in India, like Ola Cabs, Urban Company, Razorpay, Shadowfax, and many more. During his long and distinguished journey as an entrepreneur, Kunal has won various awards and accolades, which include the Economic Times Comeback Award of 2019, the Joseph Wharton Award of Young Leadership 2018, the Economic Times Entrepreneur Award of 2015, and many more. We're extremely pleased to have you amongst us, Mr. Bahel. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I would now like to invite FLO's 38th National President, Mrs. Ujjwala Singhania, to give the welcome address. Mrs. Singhania is a director at JK International and General Data Private Limited. A champion of entrepreneurship and industry, Mrs. Singhania is a strong advocate of inclusion of women and their financial independence. Over to you, Ujjwala.
A very good afternoon to everyone. As the 38th president of FICCI Ladies Organization, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of FLO Startup Cell, a national initiative of FLO. We have with us today Mr. Kunal Bahel, co-founder Snapdeal, founder Titan Capital, and Padma Shri Mr. Mohandas Pai, chairman of Manipal Global Education. Thank you for giving us your valuable time. We have a million problems, but at the same time, we have over a billion minds. These words by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, at the inauguration of the government's flagship campaign, Startup India, seems very apt in today's context. India's talent pool, local resources, and market dynamics are ideal for it to be dominating the startup scene globally. From government policies and initiatives, creating an enabling ecosystem for the sector to well-known global investors, mobilizing funds into startups all around us, the startup ecosystem is a buzz. Today, India has close to 50,000 startups across various domains, and potential of startup in India to solve critical problems was evident during this global pandemic. With lockdown in place, we saw a lot of startups pivot and provide online services for essentials and other needs. EdTech, innovative startups have ensured that effects of pandemic on the education of young mind are lessened. During crisis of opportunities, Indian startups have become the harbinger of innovativeness, risk-taking, and proactiveness. Women are playing an increasing important role in the startup ecosystem in India. whether it is as founders and co-founders of innovative companies or as investors. However, there is a need for sustainable growth of women entrepreneurs to promote a balanced growth in the country. As the largest chambers of commerce for women, FLO would like to strengthen the women entrepreneurship ecosystem, and for that, I would like to launch the FICCI FLO Startup Cell, an initiative which will handhold our members during the challenging entrepreneurial journey. Thank you. As a token of our gratitude, may I present you a green certificate on behalf of FLO to Mr. Pai and Mr. Bear.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ujjwala ji. On behalf of my entire team, I would like to thank our president for her vision and support in the launch of the FLO Startup Cell. FICCI FLO has always been a champion of women entrepreneurship, and it's on the building blocks of the work done in all the years and the dedicated teamwork of FLO members that we are able to launch the Startup Cell today. I would like to take a minute or two to share the details of the FLO Startup Cell and the team behind it. If I can request the IT team to please share the video. The government of India has recognized 41,061 startups as of December 23rd, 2020, but less than 20% of them are women founded. India today has over 10,000 angel investors, but only 1% of them are women. To address this gap and to help encourage, assist, and promote women entrepreneurs and women investors, the FLO Startup Cell has been launched. This cell will serve as an ecosystem of founders and funders who will be our flowpreneurs and flow angels. Flowpreneurs are the entrepreneurs within our community, the women who are running their businesses, who we will help think, build, scale, pitch, and fund their ventures. And flow angels are the experienced HNIs who we wish to invest in and mentor these startups. For our flow entrepreneurs, we have our FLO virtual incubator, where they will get access to training, boot camps, pitch sessions, and workshops, and also get a chance to get incubated with our partnered sector-specific incubators. Through our mentoring program, we will capitalize the expertise within our membership and give access to one-on-one mentorship. We have an existing cohort of certified mentors, and we wish to increase this number and leverage this asset to help new women entrepreneurs. Through our FLO Angel Network, we wish to create a syndicate of women angel investors. These are the untapped, experienced, suave HNI women leaders who we wish to become investors and not only gain from this asset class, but also guide our flowpreneurs. As FLO Angels is in its launch phase, initially this will just be a syndicate of women who want to learn how to invest into startups. We will be providing training and investment opportunities to these women investors through FLO Angel Network. The purpose of this FLO Startup Cell is to be a one-stop shop for our 200 plus startups for their learning and development. We have a strong and extremely dynamic national core team in place, along with an enthusiastic and able vertical heads at the chapter levels. And I'm positive that we will bring about meaningful change. I look forward to an active participation from all members of this ecosystem to take our vision forward and help women entrepreneurs rise. Thank you. Without further delay, I would now like to invite our moderator for today's session, Mrs. Archana Khosla-Burman, Programming and Collaboration Head of FICCI FLO Startup Cell and founder of Vertices Partners, a leading law firm specializing in private equity and venture capital transactions, to take this session forward. Over to you, Archana.
Thank you so much, Aarti. A very good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Mohandas Pai and Mr. Kunal Behel, all the more given that in the last decade and a half, I have had the privilege to see how the startup ecosystem has evolved, and the contribution that this ecosystem has seen from the both of you is commendable. The fact that both of you have donned multiple hats as an entrepreneur, investor, and mentor, we could not have asked for a better launch of the FLO Startup Cell. given that the ethos of our initiative really is to create a 360-degree impact. With that, I would like to start with you, Mr. Pai. Given the multiple hats that you've worn over a period of time, from being a lawyer to a chartered accountant to a CFO, a director, a part of the formative team of an iconic company, to an investor, how do you do it all? Take us through your journey and tell us what it takes to continue having the drive, the passion, and the patience to keep building, even after so many years, like it was day one. Mr. Pai.
So you're on.
Yeah. The most important attribute an individual should have is enormous passion and energy to change the context, to make the future better for everybody. See, we need a very large cause to ignite your mind, because to achieve something in life, you have to make sacrifices. Sacrifice of your time, of what you want to do, and you must keep on the same path for a long period of time. So you need to have this kind of energy and passion, and then you must have a large vision, what you want to do. For me, when I was in college, I had a collection of 3,000 annual reports. I used to read all of them globally. I became an expert. Then I used to go to shareholders meetings way back when I was 18, 21, and ask too many questions of those people. And some of them, could not answer them. And that gave us a kick. When you're young, you want to show that you're very smart, right? And then I qualified as a CA. I got a rank at the All India level. Then I said, I was a rebel. I said, I will not work for anybody. I don't want to be an employee for many reasons. I wanted to be on my own. We practiced as a CA. We didn't make money. When I was 23, practicing, I still had to go to my mother to ask for pocket money to drive my SD bike. And petrol those days was, I think, about, 5 rupees a liter or something like that. Unheard of. Those are very different days. A movie was 3 rupees for a matinee show on a weekend. I used to go, bicycles. And I grew. Then a friend of mine asked me to join a company, and it's a financial service company, leasing company, and I became executive director, never worked. And that helped me because I want to set standards. We set standards in that company. Then I went to the Infosys shareholders meeting and asked Murthy several questions when they just listed. They asked me to join. And after I joined, I was a consultant, not an employee, because I didn't want to be an employee. And we set standards for us at Infosys. And those days, when you're a very, very small company whom nobody knew, not even in Bangalore, we wanted to be the best company in the world. We could not be the biggest because big is size. We wanted to be the best in, in technology, the best in facilities for employees, the best in paying compensation, the best in creating facilities, the best in accounting standards, the best in disclosure, investor relations, in coming out with quarterly reporting in the gap of 7 countries, in US GAAP, listing on the NASDAQ, so many things, all the things that you see in the financial markets today, we did it. But personally, what drove me was this energy and passion to do very well. And then in 2005, I stepped down as CFO. I was the first CFO in India to get the award of the best CFO in India. It was a long time back, sometime in 2001. And I stepped down because I wanted my number 2 to get to be the CFO. Because, if you're a leader, you must prepare people who will be leaders against you, under you. Then you must give them the day in the sun. You can't be there outshining them, otherwise they'll go away. Everybody's got aspirations. Then in 2011, I left Infosys because I said I want my life back. I'd spent 17 years working for the company. I didn't see my boys grow up, 2 of them. And my wife, brought them up without me. You're just driven. You need the energy. And then in 2011, I started working with Ranjan Pai, and we set up Aryan Capital. We invested in 30 startups. We gave the first check of 9 million to Bindu at 20 million pre. It's the first check from Aryan Capital. Now it's 16.5 billion. It's an extraordinary company. And then we set up some 11 funds to invest in the ecosystem, to create an ecosystem for startups, because we are promoting policy, talking to government, creating an ecosystem, doing many things. Yes, I met Kulan those days in Bangalore in my office. He was an extraordinary entrepreneur. And through this fund, we set up India's first women entrepreneurship fund called Saha, because we discovered that women are not getting capital. Even now, women are not getting capital, because people are very hesitant to give capital to women-driven enterprises. Yes, more women are coming up as co-founders, but they're not getting, if they are alone joining companies, starting companies, it's very less. We work with government to start the SIPI 10,000 crore fund. We work with government to change the regulations, do so many things to help, because we believe if you improve the ecosystem like you people are doing, everybody will benefit. You can't work for yourself. If you work for yourself, you're going to be against the ecosystem. You've got to work for yourself, improve the ecosystem, make the world a better place. And very selfish reasons. Because the world is a better place, things are easier, you do much better because you are among the best. You've got to believe in yourself. So in short, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to do that. Enormous energy and passion, and making a lot of sacrifices, not trying to be after money, creating value and helping as many people as possible. In 2000, we started the Akshay Patra Foundation, the world's largest midday meal program. We already fed about 350 crore meals. And this time in the COVID, they gave about, I think, maybe 10 crore meals to everybody else. So scale is important, building this country. And lastly, I'm very proud of my country. I want India to do well. I want India to be a $10 trillion economy. I want all Indians to have the necessities of life. I want all Indians to do well. I want a country where every child can live her or his dream, and nobody will be deprived of education or food because of want of means. And everybody should have equal opportunity. After that, how they do well is up to them. So we have to create that country. And that's the country that we have to give to our children. We got a good country from our parents who struggle. We got to give a better country to our children. And if all of us do that, there'll be room for everybody. So you need to believe in your country. You need to respect your country. And you want to put India on the global map in everything we do. You want to be the best in the world. You want the best standards. Now, this is the kind of passion that you need to have and the energy. That's what is a very small, a very inconsequential life.
This is truly very inspiring, Mr. Pai. Kunal, I would like to bring you in here. You are someone who believes in the philosophy that challenges and failures are not a sign of weakness, but a sign of maturity. We know that you yourself faced your set of challenges when you started up way back in 2007 to pivoting your business model sometime in 2012. As founders, you had your own share of struggles to build a business in an unventured space back then, to today being one of the proudest turnaround stories in the startup ecosystem. So what would you state to have been your key learnings from this journey and the diverse chapters that you have gone through?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And before I get to answering it, I do want to commend the really incredible initiative that FLO has taken. It is much needed, I think, in our startup ecosystem. When I look around, things are changing now over the last 2-3 years, but yet the representation of women investors as well as women founders is so limited. And it's so unfortunate because we are unable to leverage their strengths, their experiences, and their counsel for the startups either they are building or they are backing. And hopefully that will change. And I know Mr. Pai is doing his part, I'm doing my part, and many others are. But I think FLO's initiatives will likely be very, very significant in this regard. I don't think any entrepreneurial journey is a linear one. I think most people would, from the outside, look at an entrepreneur's journey and say, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." Look at where they started and look at where they are today. Most people from the outside tend to look at the starting point and the end point, or the point at which the entrepreneur is today. However, when I look back, I actually remember mostly the times when things were not going well as compared to when things were going well. I almost don't remember a time when I was so euphoric and jumping with joy, because either things are tough or things are going really well. When things are tough, obviously as an entrepreneur you're always very focused on how to solve the problem at hand. When things are going exceptionally well, from the outside at least, you're always worrying about what could go wrong. So the entrepreneur is always the most paranoid guy in the room, and so but I think what keeps you going is, as Mr. Pai said, just the passion, right? Like you're just so invigorated by the purpose of what you are building that none of these speed bumps along the way really bother you that much. And most importantly, I've seen that most folks give up right when they're at the bottom of the abyss. They realize that nothing can improve now and things can't get better from here. However, if you have the courage to continue just when you're at the bottom of the abyss, uh, almost every time I've seen you come out of it. It's the ability to just keep going at that moment in time when nobody else would, is really what differentiates people. So the perseverance and the relentlessness is very important. Also humility, right? I think being open to change. Many times there is a fine line between relentlessness and stubbornness, and sometimes one has to recognize that what you're doing is not working, and unless you change, you will no longer be doing what you're doing for very long. So, and that's where we've been very open to evolving our business along the way, depending on the market conditions, depending on what we thought would create maximum value for our customers, for our shareholders, for our team. Very importantly, I think many times in an entrepreneurial journey, founders and folks working at startups tend to overthink a situation and get paralyzed by it. Key is to keep moving. Key is to be action oriented. Confidence grows with action and tends to shrink with idleness or over analysis. So, you actually don't need to feel confident to start, but you need to start feeling confident. And I've realized that whenever you start working on a problem, your confidence starts growing. Even if you get non-conforming evidence, even if you don't get great results, but everything is a data point that allows you to make things better thereafter. And then finally, I would say the biggest lesson I've had in my entrepreneurial journey till now is just the value of focus. Oftentimes in the world of startups, doing a lot of things is celebrated, innovation, and oftentimes innovation is mistaken for having 100 projects going on at any point in time, which you don't need actually. To build a really successful company, you need one or two things to work out in the business. And that tends to just require a tremendous amount of focus and the ability to keep saying no to a lot of distractions that come your way. So this is probably just a constellation of learnings. It's hard to summarize a reasonably long journey in a short answer, but I wanted to share some of my top of mind answers.
Thank you, Kunal, for that. In fact, an interesting anecdote which I would like to share with our participants is that when Kunal started in 2007, the goal where I read was that in 3 months you can start doing 100 orders a day, and that would be a success. But within 3 weeks of launching Snapdeal is when you started 100 orders a day. So I think the perseverance, the patience, and the passion is what is very important.
Yeah, and for whatever it's worth, I remember when we first started, I think our first year we had a total of about 50,000 customers, give or take, right? Pre-pandemic, we had 30 million customers. So at some level, everything that eventually becomes big actually starts small, and that's okay. Nothing's going to become really big really quickly. So just that patience is so critical.
Absolutely. May I now request our National President, Mrs. Ujjwala Singhania, to join us in this dialogue and ask the next set of questions to our distinguished speakers.
Thank you, Archana. Mr. Pai, you are truly very inspiring. I would like to ask you, you have served in areas of finance, information technology, corporate governance, policy formulation, startup, ecosystem, and many, many more. There is no denial there is a gender gap in almost all these areas. What role as Women's Chamber of Commerce should we do to ensure women are encouraged and promoted?
Let me talk about the startup ecosystem for women. There are only 13% of startups with a woman co-founder, right? That's the news that we get. It's very low. It is improving, but it's very, very low. And why is that? There is an inherent bias. If two women come and ask for capital, people get scared. I remember When we started Saha, we funded about 9 women entrepreneurs, only women entrepreneurs. And they told us some horror stories, how one was turned away 125 times, etc., etc. So there's a bias. So what you can do to remove the bias is to expand the pool of capital. You must have adequate capital where women can go with confidence. If they got a good proposal, they should be able to get capital. So I would urge you to go to the government of India, the finance minister, and to Prime Minister Modi and say, India requires a 5,000 crore startup fund to fund enterprises with women. You are 50% of the population. You are a very large voting bloc, and you are extremely important for the future of this country. So you must go and demand that you must get your share. And you must say the data proves that we are not getting our share, not a share by right, but a share based on merit. And then to set up an independent investment committee with good entrepreneurs who can judge and approve investments, and also investment into women managed funds. You got to create a fund of funds to invest in women managed funds, and you got to create a pool of capital to give money to women-led enterprises. Is like the Stand Up India, which is for BOP, but this should be at the national level. And this has to be done by an institution. Maybe the State Bank of India can monitor it with maybe 50% of the capital coming in from the government of India and the balance coming there. Then you can go to the private sector and ask them, etc. That's one thing that you must do. Second thing you must also do is to talk to government and tell them very clearly that till we come up to maybe 25-30% of startup entrepreneurs, every time a startup registered with the government goes to a bank and gets money, and if they got a startup woman founder, you must get 0.5% or 1% less interest. So fix a set of incentives to improve the pool of capital, to improve the fund flow to go to women-based enterprises, right? And that's important. Second, start publishing heroes of women. I'm being gender neutral, heroes of women, because there are many successful women entrepreneurs. Create stories for them, make them role model, talk about them a lot. So for young women and for women who want to be entrepreneurs, create that kind of a network so that they know that women can succeed. For example, look at Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. She's a billionaire many times over, but she spent 40 years building a Biocon. It's been a very, very tough journey. Like Kunal said, she was focused. She stuck to the gun. Many people said no, but she went on doing it. Her perseverance, her focus, her quality and passion, energy, and sacrifice that brought her to where he is. So make all these stories to give people confidence. And the third thing, have a lot of mentors who are accomplished people, because very important to have women mentors. You can have male mentors, but women mentors are better. I think you must have a lot of women mentors who will spend time with all of them and help them out and do this. And next, create a directory of all women entrepreneurs, women-funded startups, etc., and focus on this and start publishing this and create a brand, create a FLO brand. So people should be proud to say, I'm a FLO entrepreneur and I'm a FLO startup, blah, 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 and make sure. And then get the network of women who are high net worth women, and a lot of them with good money, and tell them, look at this investment. Look at this investment and work on them. This is what many women in the US and other countries are doing. Because, in the general market, there is always a lower status given to women in all parts of the world. It is only a matter of degree, not of kind. And women should get the due share in our country. They're getting it. They're much better. The good news is today we'll be very happy that we have more women graduates coming out from college than men. More women graduates. In the United States, 56%. Women are getting better educated, they're better graduates, etc. Now they need the confidence to become entrepreneurs, because like Kunal said, entrepreneurship is a lonely journey. It's a very difficult job. You are at the top. You are got to spend the money. You may make losses building an enterprise. You don't know when your next capital is going to come. You don't know when your check is going to come. You are all alone. Everybody is going after you. So, it's a very difficult journey. You require confidence. You require the enthusiasm and passion and the confidence. That's why mentorship, access to capital, reducing the barriers, these are all important things. And I think this is what you folks should do as a FLO. And I'm sure all of us, including Kunal, like I'll speak for him, will all support you. We'll all support you in everything else. But you must go to because India needs to do it as a country. Now you go to the bank, go to everybody, you will knock on doors. Please remember the private sector is interested in making money. Nothing wrong about it. That's the right way to do. But the development objective, it goes to the back end, right? And the government has the development objective in front. And you must demand your share. Ask them for a 5,000 crore fund, a fund of fund and a fund to invest in startups. And you can ask the SBI or some other institution to be the fund manager. for the 10,000 crore fund, it should be. And if you do all this, I'm sure in 5 years, you can succeed. I want to give you some data about the opportunities, right? Today, there are 55,000 startups, 56 unicorns. They created $300 billion of value. 1.5 million people are employed, right? And we got $70 billion of capital coming in the last, from 2014 till now. By 2025, we'll have more than 100,000 startups, 150 unicorns, and they'll be valued at $1 trillion. $1 trillion will be the value that's created. I'm sure Kunal by 2025 will be worth 25 billion or whatever it is that is time for. I'm sure he'll do it. So it'll be worth $1 trillion. The biggest economic opportunity in this country is in technology startups. And then work with women entrepreneurs who are techies to come. Because, if you start a startup, you need three kinds of people. You need a visionary, you need a hacker. Hacker is a person who's a techie, because, technology is the core of a tech startup today. Of course, other businesses are there. And the third, you need a hustler. I'm using a male term, please forgive me. Hustler means a person who will push business, who's a marketing person, because everything depends upon selling. So you have to create this kind of a framework. And since you're a national organization, please do all that. And then Revati, at the state level, you try to the state level. Stand up and demand that you want this to be done. And you go there enough time, it'll happen. We've demanded 10,000 crores of fund from Prime Minister Modi. We got it after 4 or 5 meetings, and that has worked wonders. He's given money to some 70, 80, 90 funds. Please do all this.
Thank you so much for your valuable inputs. We really look forward for your support and to work together with you. Thank you. Mr. Behel, your story is truly inspiring. Your startup is a very known and a very successful story that is said by everyone today. I would like to ask you, with the pandemic affecting a lot of small businesses, especially women who were home entrepreneurs, who sell their products through exhibition and trade fairs, how can an e-commerce giant like Snapdeal help and encourage more women to get on its platform?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I agree. I think this pandemic, on one end of the spectrum, has ravaged many businesses, small and large, but on the other end, has also created a host of new opportunities that didn't exist, and also in some ways create a level playing field for many small entrepreneurs. At a time when stores were shut, you could sell from home, and at a time when brands were struggling promoting their products, you could create your own brand and start selling it nationwide. Selling online is actually a highly simplified task at this point in time. I know on our platform, you can register and start selling in like 30 minutes. And that would be true for all e-commerce platforms out there, each one with their own USP. But what I would encourage the members here and the community of Wikiflow to think about is the fact that India is actually highly underpenetrated when it comes to brands. There are barely brands, trustworthy, credible brands in many categories of products out there. And the creativity that entrepreneurs can bring to the table, coupled with the technology that is now available, which was not available when we started, you can get up and running and start your own website, or start selling on Instagram, or start selling on WhatsApp, or any of the other social media channels that exist now. I remember 10 years ago, there was no Shopify that we could leverage, where Shopify is this platform where you can pretty much set up your own e-commerce platform in a matter of a few hours. You actually don't even need technical skills to do that. You can just do it yourself. If you know how to, maybe a little more than just browsing a website, you can probably set up a Shopify account for your brand and business. I feel that over the next 5 years, there will be over 100 new greater than $100 million each brands that will get created in India. And over the next 10 years, some of them will become more than $1 billion brand. And many of those brands will be started by folks on this call, I'm sure. But sometimes startups or technology startups can seem very overwhelming from the outside. That, oh, where will we hire our first engineer? Where will we hire our first product manager? There's a tremendous amount of fear of the unknown. But the world has changed tremendously. Now you can get up and running in no time with your business. I know so many founders who don't have an engineering degree, who don't have technical skills, that classic technical skills like writing code or those type of skills. But at the same time, they are able to, get up and running with their businesses within weeks, and within months are doing crores a month in sales, and within years are doing hundreds of crores of sales annually. That dream is very much possible. All you need to do is figure out, what are you passionate about? Is there a particular industry? Is there a particular category? Start experimenting, launch a few products, see how they go, talk to customers. And before you know, you'll have a brand that has nationwide presence, and everyone would be using it. And there's so many channels available, and sky's the limit. So I do hope and encourage. Yeah, I do feel quite passionately, similar to what Mr. Pai said. I feel we use too many global brands in India, when many of those global brands globally are run by Indians. So clearly, we don't have a talent issue here. I think we have the best talent in the country to build brands, but we aren't doing enough of it. And I think there's a huge opportunity over the next few decades to build new brands in India.
Thank you, Kunal.
I want to add to what Kunal said. And there are three kinds of startups. All right. The first kind of startup is a business where the technology is a front end. Now, if you have a business where the technology is the front end, not the back end, like a retail store, a clothing distributor, a fashion store, you must use existing technology and portals like Kunal's and others to just go and do your business. It's very easy today, because they will take care of your marketing. They will take care of your sales execution. They will take care of your payments. They'll pay you on time. And they will take care of your supply chain, and they'll take care of your distribution, all the things that will do. You have to have a good product and go to an existing place, an e-commerce place, and start selling. That'll be very good. That's a business. So businesses come there, and for that, there's a lot of technology for you to use. You don't have to recreate technology. The second kind of startup is a B2b tech company, which is pure tech. You try to create a piece of technology, and then you try to sell it to enterprises. Is like Oracle selling a Oracle piece, a database, or whatever they sell today, or a cloud by AWS, etc. And the third is an algorithmic company like Google or Facebook or a Twitter, which depends on algorithm to grow, which is very difficult. Maybe 1 in 10,000 startups will have a company like that, like an Instagram, blah, blah, blah. They're platforms. So I think depending upon your talent, what you want, you can run any variety of businesses and use these various existing technology building blocks to assimilate, like Kunal said. So you don't have to bother about technology. But if you're a B2B company, yes, you have to look at technology, so you can decide. But the world has become much easier for entrepreneurs today. The key issue is, do you have a good idea? Do you have a good product? And do you have capital to grow? And you've got to solve these three problems. Good idea. I'm sure all of you have good ideas. Good product. You're all creative. You can create that. You have capital to grow. So solve the problem of capital, Ujjwala, and you will see a blooming of entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pai, for those excellent suggestions. My next question is, in fact, for you. Given the fact that you're a prolific investor and you have watched the Indian market from very close quarters, you have also seen various cycles of journeys in a company's lifespan, right from creation to capital raises to all the way to exits. So as an investor, sir, what are those key parameters that attract you to a potential portfolio? And what has been your thesis behind the investments you make?
Well, the first thing that attracts me to a portfolio is the entrepreneur. Who is the entrepreneur? What is the entrepreneur want to do? Does the entrepreneur have that energy and the drive to last it out? Because any business enterprises, it takes 10 to 12 years. It's very hard. It's very tough. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. It's not a job for everybody. But entrepreneurship is very, very special. There are people of extraordinary energy, extraordinary commitment, and there are people who want to stay there. They've got ambition. They want to drive. And many of them are very charismatic founders like Kunal's, right? They can inspire people, they can drive people. So you look at the person first, and then look at the idea and what they have. All right, the idea can be an idea for a product or a service and whether they can do it. And the third, you look at the team that they're gathering together, whether the team can do it. And fourth, look at the strategy. And based upon that, you commit. If you are committing a seed capital, you just look at the entrepreneur and the idea and what they're doing, where they are, and you take a chance on them. Because you just say, okay, I'm willing to support you, and work with them to help them navigate, right, and get them capital, etc. Now, if you're looking at Series A, of course, the company will already be having a product or a service. They will have a history. Can they scale up? Scalability is the most important thing in Series A. And if you have scalability, I think it'll work. And the third thing that you do, if you're a growth investor, maybe above Series B, then you look at whether they can grow, what are the chances of raising for the capital, where they're going to go, etc. But in all this, one most important attribute is, can they go before somebody and wow them? Do they have the ability to wow them? Now, wowing somebody can be a style and can be based upon capability. So you got to be careful about people who talk more than what they can achieve. So you got to be a good judge of people. And if you're able to do all that, so you must have the marketing skills and do it in a short while. In a 3 or 4 or 5 PPT, you should be able to convey what you want to do and talk about it and inspire people. I think these are all the things that we look for when we look at entrepreneurs. For example, when Bindu first came before us, he was very, very confident. He was very energetic, extremely passionate. He spoke about scale, and he had a will that he's going to do this. And he pivoted from what he was doing, testing, to going into education, right? And the pivot happened in our office when we discussed why testing was not growing, and we discussed many ideas. But what struck us was, here was a person with enormous energy, a clear vision, determination to do this, and he was confident. All these things are personal attributes. So you bet on the person, and the idea is important.
Absolutely. Kunal, even during the pandemic, you continue investing, and in fact, recently closed a few transactions as well. So similar to what Mr. Pai said, how much of importance do you give to the founder team and the intangible equations that come along with it?
Yeah, it's all about the team. At least, at the earliest stages of the business, there is practically no data. When at the stage at which Mr. Pai invests, or when we invest in our personal capacity as angels, there's almost no data to see. There's a presentation, there's an ambition, but there is almost no data, never any data. But I think there are oftentimes some leading indicators that can tell you whether whether the right ingredients are there or not, right? And typically there are only three ingredients. There is the team, which is the most critical, as Mr. Pai said. And in the team, what we try and see is that, what have they achieved in their personal or academic or entrepreneurial or professional lives? Can one point to success that they may have had in creating impact, particularly in unstructured or blank slate environments? Can they inspire people around them? Having interviewed thousands of people through the years, and met many thousands of entrepreneurs, I feel that it's easy to tell. You can tell, like what Mr. Pai was saying about Bindu, whether can this person stand in front of hundreds or thousands of employees in the future and mesmerize them and inspire them, because that is such an important part of building a large business in the long term. The second is just the attractiveness of the space itself and how large is the opportunity. This is tough in the earliest stages to assess, because most of the startups are oftentimes about creating industries that didn't exist before. However, the best entrepreneurs I've seen tend to be exceptional at helping investors gaze into a crystal ball about what this business can become when it grows up. When they're great dreamers and they know how to get other people to dream with them. And the final thing I would say, which has become increasingly important even in our ecosystem, is the ability for the business to actually generate some economics. So while many companies at the earliest stages are pre-revenue, it is important to know how will it actually make money eventually. even if at a unit level, how will it make money? What are the margins going to be? Because what one has realized is that a business that's a 10% margin business versus a business which is a 50% margin business are very different businesses. And neither is good or bad, it's just that they are different. And oftentimes you'd meet entrepreneurs who'll say that my business today is a 20% margin business, it'll become a 40% margin business. But usually the 40% margin business is a different business altogether. So knowing whether your business is a squirrel with a tail or elephant with a trunk is very important, and your margins tend to determine that. And thereafter, all your actions as a company and actions as a founder also tend to be determined by that. And look, at the end of the day, while in the early stages, capital is important and now seemingly abundant, the chances of building a lasting, enduring company will only go up if you have a clear path of being completely self-reliant from a capital standpoint, which cannot happen without positive economics. So I would say in summary, it would be the team, the size of opportunity, and the ability to generate economics or unit economics in the business are the three things we would focus a lot on.
Thank you. I would now like to bring in our FLO Startups National Head, Dr. Aarti Gupta, to ask a few questions to our esteemed panelists.
Thank you, Mr. Pai and Mr. Behel, for your fabulous suggestions on both as an entrepreneur and investors for all our members who are dialing in today. In fact, Mr. Pai, I remember meeting you in Bangalore a couple of years back, and I've been one of the first investors into the Saha All Women Fund. And, I really feel that we women need to have more investors and raise capital in order for women entrepreneurs to succeed. My question to you is, given the pandemic, is the thought to wait and watch and reserve dry powder for your portfolio? Or is it that in the current situation, the one could get some good quality opportunities and assets at attractive valuation? What would you consider given the current COVID situation as an investor?
Well, I think the COVID separated the men from the boys. I don't know what the right term to be gender neutral, women from the girls, whatever it is, because COVID has given an opportunity to all digital enterprises to demonstrate growth, because it is an unbelievable opportunity. It is sad for society, but everybody has been locked in and everybody has gone online. So I think and gone to the mobile. So many people have grown extremely well. For example, I remember one of our company, Licious. Licious is a fresh meat company. Licious is grown 6x in a matter of maybe 1.5 years, right? We were very scared. What happens if everything is shut down? And within 2 months, they were up. And they just, in the second wave, they grew even faster. Now they're raising more capital. So all digital enterprises. So for us, when the COVID happened last March, we were cautious. We spoke to everybody to preserve capital. And I must tell you, all our startup entrepreneurs, and we had a portfolio of about 275 companies between our 14 funds. We have a very large system. All of them cut their costs. They made sure that people were taken care of. They made sure they worked from home, and they were very, very cautious, and they started growing, and they focused on meeting customer delight and customer aspirations, and they could grow. And certainly in 6 months' time, we knew who are the winners, and we started putting more money into winners and inviting others to put money. So many of the winners already raised 2 rounds of capital. So this has been a very catalytic event for the startup ecosystem, and it's thrown up many, many winners. And that's why we had 14 unicorns in maybe 4 months. And you're going to have maybe 20, 25 unicorns this year. And the enormous amount of company money is coming in to pick the winners, because these winners are the ones who have grown rapidly, and they're going to grow 14 unicorns. And by the end of the year, we could be 60 to maybe 65. It's happening every single day. So I think this has been a burst of energy. So I think it's very clear. We were cautious, then we understood the impact, and they started putting money, and then told them, go raise capital. One thing about capital, all of you must remember, you raise money when money is available, not when you want money. The fundamental rule of entrepreneurship, raise money when money is available. Where the market moves in cycles, there's irrational exuberance, valuation goes up, then rationality comes in, and then valuation comes down, and everybody becomes pessimistic. During the cycle, you're not going to get money. So you got to raise money when everything is going up, and raise money and last out the next cycle. then it will come again. Maybe in the stock market is 3 to 5 years. In the startup ecosystem, it is maybe 2 to 3 years. I remember the exuberance a few years ago when housing.com suddenly got a $100 billion check and all that. Kunal, I'm sure remember all that. And suddenly within the next 1 year, it came down again. It went up. So it goes through. So raise money when things are there. So we told all of them, raise money when money is available, and then grow, invest hugely. Please remember that for all the good startups, they make losses because they invest in 2 years what others invest in 10 years. They grow in 2 years what others grow in 10 years. And that is why there's such a threat, existential threat to many companies which already exist. Because before you know what is happening, they've grown so large that they can be really, really leaders and they can overtake all of you. So raise money. So we did all this, and I think we are sitting pretty right now.
Super wonderful advice, sir. Raise money when money is available. I hope all entrepreneurs are listening to this. Kunal, my next question is to you. Your words have been so encouraging to all the women on this call about building brands. And I'm positive that with your encouragement, we will have multi-million brands out of the FLO startup ecosystem. We saw several liquidity crunches this year. Entrepreneurs considered alternative revenues and digitized offerings and pivoted business models. In fact, we hear that you did a pretty hard pivot in your business in early 2012, which was turning the coupons platform into a marketplace for physical products. What would be your advice to entrepreneurs to deal with this current pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. However, it completely depends on the situation that a particular startup is going through. If you were to put startups in the bucket of this pandemic was, I hate to say good for you because I don't think it's been good for anyone. But let's say purely from a very commercial business standpoint, if it was good for your business model versus if it was not. I think if it was good for your business and your business model, this is the time to press the pedal and grow, right? If you have strong product market fit and there has been a strong, the pandemic and the migration to digitization across the board has been great in creating momentum, and press the pedal and grow faster, because this is the time to put more distance between yourself and the incumbents, whether they are digital or offline. In case this pandemic has created headwinds for your business, and that is, there are many businesses for whom the pandemic is actually, even digital businesses for whom the pandemic has created headwinds, because suddenly, people are no longer, for instance, going to gyms, or they're no longer going to movie theaters. There are, or no longer going and visiting restaurants. So there are various types of businesses that have been negatively impacted also. First and foremost is to just make sure the number one job of any founder or CEO is to not run out of money. I think oftentimes we tend to celebrate innovation and sort of the Steve Jobs effect much more. I feel the most underrated aspect of a successful founder is their ability for their business to ensure their business never runs out of money. So now that could be a combination of cutting costs prudently without cutting into the bone, but cutting any fat and maybe as a process, a little bit of muscle also, but not the bone, hopefully. And taking a very conscious view that, is this temporary? Are these headwinds temporary, or are they structural and permanent? If they are temporary, the key is to just use this time to keep your head down, reduce your costs as much as you can, keep the burn low, and build capabilities that will be useful, or that you are de-emphasized in the past because there were other priorities. However, the more difficult problem is if you know that the change is now structural and the demand will never come back, or the behavior has permanently evolved of your customers or potential customers. In that case, first and foremost is the internal communication. The founder must communicate to his team, first his leadership team, and then onwards to the rest of the team, that things are not going to be the same again, and some tough decisions would need to be taken. And a lot of our assumptions about how our business was going to grow, was going to get built, are going to be very different. And it will require having difficult conversations around just changing essentially the entire business. One example I would give you is one company we are an investor in. they were going to make visa processing easy. And they were all set to do that. And this is right at the beginning of the pandemic. And the moment the pandemic hit, they were very clear that for the foreseeable future, travel is going to reduce. And hence visa processing, however simple visa processing they could make, the demand for visas are going to drop considerably over the coming 2-3 years. And so they pivoted their business, but they saw that there was a huge opportunity in online education, and they pivoted their business into online education. And within 6 months, their business was on fire. But it was an excruciating turnaround and pivot for that business, for that company, and kudos to the founder for having pulled that off. And so I think that's how I would segment the how to approach whether the headwinds or whether the business is facing headwinds or tailwinds.
My next question is to both Mr. Pai and Kunal. In this sea of sharks, both of you come across as a very pleasant change, where we hear portfolios talking about you more as a mentor and a partner in the truest sense. So, what is your secret ingredient? Is empathy capital the key capital?
I had very different views when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I was aggressive. I wanted everybody to follow me, and anybody who was not aggressive, we used to push them, blah blah blah. And growing up, it was a very different world, and it worked. It worked. I had a very small team. I insisted they set standards. I didn't take no for an answer. It had to be done by a due date, and everybody's productivity went up, and they followed up. Yes, where the casualties very very few, because everybody was rallying to the flag, etc. Now, as I grew older, I became a director HR, and I remember on the first day I stepped on as CFO. First day, my team came and told me, how can we trust you? Now, remember, I'm a director on the board of the company. I'm the boss. They're coming and telling me, how can we trust you? I said, why? He said, look, you are the CFO. You're beating us up. When we went for this, you said no money, blah, blah, blah. That's not right. I gave them more than they wanted, but they had that view. I told them, look, till yesterday, if a person came into my room, I looked at the person at the net present value of a future stream of revenues. From today, I'm going to look at them as people who deserve empathy, people who deserve support, and whose well-being is my priority. So you change your views, and then it made me very different as a director HR, because I'm dealing with people. I had to meet their aspiration, and I used to tell HR is an entity which bridges the gap between the strategic objectives of the enterprise and the aspirations of people. Now, people make up a company. People have aspirations, right? They want salary, they want promotion, they want job, they want this, they want that. And the corporation has its objectives of growth, of market domination, of profitability, etc. The role of HR is to bridge the gap between both of them and make sure that both are aligned totally so that everybody gets what they want. And for that, I found, and I practice it, I practice a small way, but in a bigger way later, that you have to carry people with you, you got to communicate, you got to be empathetic, you got to be a source of emotional support, and you got to do very well, and you got to be careful about it as a leader. When you got a small team, it's fine, everybody. When you have a bigger team, you got to communicate better and make sure that everything is taken care of. You got to respond to people, you got to be honest, and you got to stand up and be an inspiration, and you got to be a communicator. Then as HR, I had Hema Ravichandran and Nanita Gujjar, report to me. I mean, they were HR heads. They were women. They were extraordinary people. They did extremely well. Okay. And I was in a tight bind because I was responsible to the board, but they were there running HR and I had to support them. Okay. They used to always talk back to me. They never accepted what I wanted without an argument. And I couldn't force anything on them. But they were all great colleagues because they had bright ideas and they were good at executing. But they used to come and ask for solution. They used to discuss everything. So you got to be a consensus builder, and you got to come to a point if consensus and discuss with everybody, carry everybody along. But once you take a decision, everybody should rally to the flag. So I think when you manage an enterprises, you got to be seen as a person who is trustworthy, person you can follow. And being a leader is a very difficult job. Extremely difficult. I'm sure Kunal knows about it. It's a very lonely job. Everything stops at you. The responsibility stops at you. The buck stops at you. It's like in the Indian Army. When the Indian Army marches, the lieutenant or the colonel or whoever it is, or the head of the force, he's going to take the first bullet. He can't turn back. He can't tell others, "Aap aage jao, main piche aauga." It doesn't work. You have to lead by example. They look up to you for every small thing that you do becomes a big thing. So I think it's a very different thing. And you got to do all this.
I presume you would like me to answer the same question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so, I think Mr. Pai gave pretty much the same answer that I would have given, but fundamentally my motivation of investing and supporting other founders is, when we started, there was nothing known as an angel investment or early angel investor or early stage investor ecosystem. There were a total of maybe 8 or 10 VCs in India, many of them new to the job themselves. And the only angel investors you would meet were essentially literally like sharks, where I remember we went to our first angel, someone introduced us to some person in real estate in Delhi. And we, after an hour and a half of pitching our business to him, he smiled, he got up, and my co-founder Rohit and I there was a spark that went off in our hearts that, wow, someone's going to fund us now, because he was just so happy. He was nodding and agreeing with everything. And then he said, "I'd love to back you guys. And I'd like to take 60% of your company for 25 lakhs. And so I think that was the paradigm of angel investment 10, 12 years ago, which has now changed materially. Now entrepreneurs these days get funded even before they leave the current job that they are in. So things have changed. And look, for me, supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs is extremely fulfilling. It keeps me intellectually relevant as well. And many of the challenges, opportunities, the ups and downs we've gone through, I wouldn't want others to go through them if I can help it. If through mentorship, constant engagement, helping them think through problem statements that we may have seen in our own journey or journey of other founders we've partnered with through the years, I'd love for them to not make the same mistakes. I think it makes their businesses grow faster, waste less money, have less heartburn along the way. In some ways, more philosophically speaking, Gita has a saying, which is, what we take owns us and what we give sets us free. I think every angel investor probably feels that in some ways. You feel you're giving, you obviously from the outside, people get shocked. Oh, you gave 1 crore rupees to that person, basis what? Like basis 5 slides? But actually it really sets you free, because then you watch the great thing they build with that capital and with all the efforts that they're going to put in the subsequent years. It's one of the most fulfilling things professionally that one can do. And I would, as Mr. Pai said in the beginning with his remarks, that if any of you are in a position where you can support other founders financially and with your knowledge, network, mentorship, please do. I don't think there is anything professionally that I found more fulfilling than that. With your own business, you will create a lot of impact. You will create jobs. You will touch lives of hopefully millions of people. But the amplification that you can do by supporting dozens of founders is absolutely unmatched. The amplification of impact. So do highly recommend that.
I want to add one thing. If you're a founder, entrepreneur, never become an employee. I got nothing against employees. So Kunal stood up for it, because if you go for capital, don't sell your soul to get somebody have a majority stake. No, you're going to dilute a little bit, enough to survive. Don't make sure don't blow up the money. So maybe 5 years, 6 years down the journey, you've got to have a decent stake, because the benefits of the business should go to you. You are the one who founded the business. You are the one who built it up. You are the one who had the sleepless night. You are the one who took all the stress. You got to make sure that you get your just rewards. Never become an employee. And if you are an investor, you should never make the founder an employee by diluting the stake too much, because everything is depending on the person. If the person doesn't have a stake, he's going to say, "Hey man, I'm going elsewhere. I'm going to start my own, because what is the point? I don't want to work. I'm not in here for the employment or the salary you give me. I'm here because I'm a stakeholder. I want to be a decent stakeholder. And the stake has got to be decent. There's one cardinal rule because, and if you're an investor, just make sure that you can advise the entrepreneur, but you are not in command of the entrepreneur. Entrepreneur decides and you've got to support him right or wrong. And if you find that you can't support, you can sell and go. But the entrepreneur has to remain the entrepreneur. Don't make the entrepreneur employee. They're not employees. They are entrepreneurs. They're somebody very special. They have the capability to create magic. They could lose all your money. That's also part of the risk that you take. But respect them for entrepreneurship. Respect them for taking decisions. And as an entrepreneur, you must listen to everybody, but take your decision which you think is best for everybody. Right? Don't be driven by somebody. You'll have people on the board telling you multiple things. And many of the people, Kunal, tell me on the boards who come from the venture capital fund, they never run a business. They're all some MBAs from somewhere who come and sit and think they know all the businesses. They do analysis, tell you, because they don't take any responsibility. They have not run businesses. They have not failed. They have not succeeded. They are investors. You respect them, respect their views. ठीक है, आपने बोला मैं जो करना है करूँगा. So remember, you entrepreneur, you decide and you have to run the business. And you would have a right stake. Never dilute to such an extent. You got nothing at the end because you're not there for charity. Right, Kunal? I hope you still have a very good stake, Kunal. You got to get the rewards of all the hard work and sacrifice you made over the years.
Absolutely. Well said.
Those are some excellent suggestions. I would now like to call upon Mrs. Nehal Parekh, the head of our Angel Investor Network segment, to address a question to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Archana. I'm really enjoying this session thoroughly, just listening to you, Kunal and Mr. Pai. It's a fabulous session. It's just a very engaging interaction, just hearing your thoughts and the way you guys are putting it on. It's hardly like an event where we are, logging into a Zoom. It feels like it's an interaction. So thank you for your very honest views and thoughts you're sharing with all our members today. My question, of course, is to you, Mr. Pai. Over the years, I've been listening to you, and each time there has been a question to you, it's full of information and full of facts. And here's one more question for you that would help our audience, which is, what we've seen over the years that a lot of our startups tend to register themselves outside the country. And it really drains all the monies that they are building for the country, and it's all going outside the country. So what do you think, in your opinion, can the government do in order to retain this wealth within the country? So I'd really like to hear your views on that.
The sad thing about India is that our capitalistic class in this country is not investing enough in startups. US invests $135 billion a year, large part of it from America. China, 65 billion, 65% from Chinese companies. India, 70 billion from 2014 till now, 90% from outside India. Our big businesses are not investing. The Tatas are only doing it now because they bought one MG, they bought Big Basket. Reliance is creating its own ecosystem. That's different. Infosys has not invested in India. Wipro has invested, yes, to the fund, but not to the company. They invest outside. TCS is just doing things now to the Tatas. Look at all the big companies. They're not putting the money. And if you look at Bombay and all the big brokers and all the big investors, they got hardly anything there. I keep telling them, you're missing the biggest opportunity in this country. So I think the reason why people are going out is, one, lack of capital. Many of the overseas investors say, we don't want to come to India to invest. You go to Singapore or somewhere else, we'll invest. We won't give you capital. So they all go because they want capital. Second, have a very bad tax laws. The tax system is very perverse. That there's too much of tax terrorism. They go after you, they amend the law retrospectively, and they pass all kind of orders. It takes 15, 20 years. We've been talking to government, please change this. Government is doing everything. Prime Minister Modi is doing everything, but still it's taking time because they're not changing the behavior, and nobody trusts your tax system. And I think it's very important. And the third, a lack of incentives. If you're a foreign investor, you pay lesser tax and capital gains than a local investor. If you're an Indian investor, after 2 years of holding an unlisted company, you pay 20% tax. Above 5 crores income, you pay another about, I think, 38% surcharge. So you pay 28%. Because, in the stock market, if you invest, you pay 10% plus 15%, 11.5%. Now, why will anybody invest, take a greater risk, invest in unlisted stock and pay more money when you actually make good profits? Because the profits come in the lieu of any return that you got for multiple years. So when it comes, hopefully out of 10 companies, maybe 2 or 3 will do well. maybe you get a big thing, but you got to pay too much of tax. The tax system is very perverse. So the incentive structure is not there, and the knowledge among many of the investors is not there. And then the overseas people don't trust our tax system. They want to go outside. The people go. Out of 56 unicorns, I think 30 or 35 headquartered in India. Headquartered outside. Out of 150 unicorns, maybe the great majority headquartered outside. We keep telling them, stay here, stay here. Now, hopefully, Swiggy is going public. They'll raise money. All these people understand it's good to be in India. But the tax system, the foreign exchange regulations, if you're a company in India, you sell to an overseas company who acquires you, you got to get a valuation certificate, you got to give documents, and the overseas investor cannot repair the money till the government gives permission. All kind of nonsense is there. These are all figments of the FERA regime. We've been writing to government for long. Some things have improved, but still a lot of things have to be done. So these kind of things are sadly making India a very unattractive destination for Indian capital to come in, which must improve. And my biggest fear is we don't want to be a digital colony. We don't want the biggest companies to be headquartered outside India. Then what is here will be a subsidiary. We want them to be Indian companies and to conquer the world. That's what we want. That's why we are working so hard to build this country. But these are major, major problems in India.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I request Mrs. Vijiti Raju, chairperson, to address questions to our panelists?
A very good evening to Mohandas Paiji and Kunal Bail. My question to Kunal is, how important is it to reinvent your business as an entrepreneur, and at what point does one think about bringing changes in the business to hit the right chord? You've changed your business model 6 times, still you were happy with it. When did you realize you needed the change? Kunal?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I did address some of it before, but I think I'll give a more considered response this time. I feel that most founders, if they are being intellectually honest with themselves, they know when it's not working. Financially, I think there's a metric, what we call unit economics, which means that at an order level or an item level, are you making money post all your variable or direct expenses or not? Because if you're not able to make money post incurring, post paying for all your direct expenses for serving a customer, you will never make money and you will incur more loss.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have some network issue with
Kunal?
Can we move on to the next question till he joins back?
Sure. May I now bring in Mrs. Priya Gautam, the head of our virtual incubator and mentoring division, to address a question to any of our panelists?
Sure, thank you very much. And actually, my question was for both Kunal as well as Mr. Mohandas Pai. I'm going to ask a softer aspect of, as an investor. What are the qualities that as an investor you would look to invest in any startup? Because I think we spoke so much about what we should do in business, but if you are an investor, how would you look at the angle of, where should I bet my bucks on?
Well, like I said, you are to bet on the person, at the seed level, angel level. Then after they grow, you bet on the business and the person. And then you bet on the business at the growth level, because the business is well set. Then you can always hire good managers, etc. So I think these things change depending upon where you are. At the initial stage, it is the person, and the team. Like Kunal said, the team. It has to be a team. If you're one person, you have a risk. The team is much better. So I think, depending on the situation, you back the team and then the team and the idea. Then you back the idea more than the team. And then later you back the business and managers are available. You can always get managers later after it grows.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pai.
May I now request Mrs. Bindu Shastri, the head of strategy and digital marketing, to address a question to any of our panelists?
Thank you, Archana. So, greetings, Mr. Pai. It's always an honor and it's very thrilling to listen to. Every time I get something new from what you talk. So my question is around data security. So coming from that space, small and medium scale startups do not have a stringent cybersecurity environment right now in India. And the government is only now waking up to this need, but it's good that they've woken up. And by the time these legislations come through, right, in the meantime, as startup founders and also investors, what can we do to ensure that the fundamental blocks are in place to secure our citizens' data and also identity?
Cybersecurity is at 4 levels. First level is the individual should take precautions to protect their own data, not give the password, have discipline and the list of do's and don'ts. We know that. Second is the enterprise should make sure they take adequate security to protect privacy, to make sure that you buy some products, etc., and do things much, much better. And the third, your service providers should have security standards to make sure, because the telecom service providers and others should have standards. And the fourth, you've got to make sure that at the national level, there is a policy for cybersecurity. People who create cyber crimes are protected. And there is a law which gives you a right to protect yourself. I think all the 4 building blocks are required. And if you have all 4, the one working, it takes care of 30-35% individual, security. Then the enterprise, that takes care of 60-70%. And then if you take care of the balance of, working with very good vendors, that takes care of it. And the law to protect you. I was the director in the National Stock Exchange. It has a lot of data. So they got a very robust training of people there to make sure the data is secure. They got a very robust set of people who manage. They got a lot of tools and technology to protect themselves. They find out who is hacking, where things are coming. They got all the best tools and they're able to protect all your data. So all these 4 things are required. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pai. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pai and Mr. Behel. This brings us to the end of this very enthralling session. This has been such a pleasure to hear you both share your respective perspectives on different aspects of the life cycle of an entrepreneur's journey. I'm sure our audience has truly gained a lot of insights from your experiences. Over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Archana. I would like to just reiterate Archana's views. This has been an extremely invigorating session with lots of learnings for both our founders and funders of FLO. We did have a lot more questions in the audience, but due to the lack of time, we will have to leave it for another day. And we request both Mr. Pai and Mr. Behel to come back to FLO and address all these questions. I would now like to invite Bindu Shastri to give the vote of thanks, please.
Thank you, Aarti. So we'll just make it brief. So first of all, Mr. Mohandas Pai and Mr. Kunal Bell, it has been an honor to host you both at this momentous occasion of the launch of the FLO Startup Cell. It's been our privilege. So FLO has taken significant strides in this space to reach where we are now. And I would like to thank our dear President, Ujjwala Singhania, and the past presidents of FLO who supported this vision year on year, along with the esteemed governing body members and the secretariats. So thank you so much for this. And Aarti, as the leader of this initiative, we, the core team comprising of Priya Gautam, Archana Khosla, Nehal Parekh, and myself, we give you our full support. And Archana, thanks for moderating this fabulous session, as you always do. And on behalf of my team, I would like to thank all the chapter chairs and the Startup Cell representatives of each chapter, who I'm sure will make this vision happen. And many congratulations to all of us here for the launch of this FLO Startup Cell. And thanks for joining us for this launch. And thank you, IT team, for putting this all together. It's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations to everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Great job, everybody. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Ujjwala ji, for encouraging this and for this launch and the support. And thank you to the entire core team, Bindu, Archana, Priya, Nehal,